about today. And this new series, because our goal throughout this entire series is to talk to people about who we are and to discuss at the table about who we are and who we'd like to be as a church, as Downtown Faith, and what does that mean? And as an organization, we have mission, vision, values that we take very seriously, and things that we want to be in this community. And so throughout this series, who are we? That's exactly what we're going to talk about. And if you sum it up, our organizational purpose kind of includes our mission, our vision, our values. It's right there. Is Downtown Faith exists to help people follow Jesus into a new life of worship, commitment, love, generosity, by creating space to discuss life and faith. This is our purpose. When our core team gets together and we make decisions and we meet and we strategize and we operate, what we're doing it through this filter of our organizational purpose. We believe in this purpose. We believe that this purpose has deep spiritual meaning and it has really a bearing on what goes on in downtown Las Vegas. And that's what we're going to talk about today and throughout our series. And so we're going to kind of break this down little by little over the next several weeks. And so the first thing that I really want to talk about as we look at this purpose is the part of what just says Downtown Faith, and we're a church. So today we're going to talk about church. Maybe it sounds redundant to talk about church at church, but that's what we're going to talk about. So a lot of times when you're talking about church, though, people have a lot of different ideas. There's a lot of things that go on. So we're going to talk first about what church is not. These are some of the ideas that things come up. First off, a building. Right? When most people in America think of church, they think of a building. Maybe a building that's really pointy. Right? Or a building that has a cross on top, or a cross prominent somewhere, on the building. I grew up in a church with this massive front end that was like this 50-foot cross, and it was like this sense of pride. It had the largest cross of any city, of any church in the city, which was really weird to me, because it was just weird. It's like, that's an instrument of death, and we're like proud to have the biggest one. It's a building. But when you look in the Bible, like there's a misunderstanding of that. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit, of why we think of building. When we hear the word church, it actually comes through some, language issues that come up over time as you translate and you take things from one language to another. So in America, we think of buildings, but actually the buildings that are talked about in the Bible are like synagogues and temples and homes, actually. Not the church. So sometimes people think of church, they think of a social club, right? Like there's this status. If I'm a member of this church, I have this status socially within this certain community. And you see this all the time in different types of community, maybe in smaller communities in certain regions of the country. It's this social club mindset. And this really comes from a misunderstanding of what a church member is. And we're going to talk about that through this series. We're going to talk about what does it look like for someone to be a member of Downtown Faith, to join up with Downtown Faith. What does that look like? But it's not a social club, it's a social justice network, right? Like some people think that the church should be this place that just fights for social justice and meets the needs of the poor and the broken. Now, I think that every church should be meeting the needs of the poor and the broken. I think that every church should be fighting for justice in the world around us, in this broken world. But it's not all that we do, right? Like there's more to a church than just meeting needs and fighting for justice. These are good things that every church should be doing, but it's not all that we do. So we want to clarify and have a more holistic approach. Then for some people, church is a weekend event, right? You show up on Sunday morning, Sunday night, maybe church has a Saturday night service that's easier to go to, so I go to that one. You just go to whichever one's easiest, and it's a weekend event. I show up, I say hey to these people that I don't even really like, so that's why I don't hang out with them the rest of the week, and then I leave, right? And it's this event in a lot of churches, this is their goal, right? A great weekend event. And so they do a lot of great things for that weekend event. It's this huge production, and it's an amazing thing. There's some churches that you can go to and have this great event. There's this great concert, huge music. But again, while that is something that can happen at a church, it's maybe not a holistic approach to what church is. And it's not all that church is. For a lot of people, for them, it is a weekend event. But just like the Secret Service will tell you, yeah, you didn't know I was going to go there. It's a Secret Service. Just like the Secret Service will tell you, the best way to understand counterfeit money and to spot counterfeit money isn't to study all of the counterfeits. It's to study and know the original so well that you can spot a fake right away. And so my goal throughout the sermon today isn't for us to talk about all the things that church is not, because that's maybe easy. It's really, let's look at what church is, or at least what it was supposed to be, and what it was when it started. Because then that'll give us a great place to kick off this series as we think about Downtown Faith and our organizational purpose, our mission, vision, values. Who are we as a church? So let's go right to the first time that we see Jesus use the word that's translated as church. Let's look at it here in Matthew 16, 18. And we do come from the Bible a lot. We teach from the Bible every week. We have Bibles in the back. If you'd like one, take one. It's yours. It's free. We'd love for you to use it and to be able to participate along with us. Also, YouVersion, the Bible app, is a great app to find on your phone. It says, so right here, and what's happening is Jesus is having a conversation with his disciples, right? His closest followers. And he asked them a question and said, hey, who are people saying that I am? And so they're like, oh, they think you're this guy, they think you're this guy, they think you're this person. And then he asked them a question I think all of us at some point need to answer. He said, who do you say that I am? And so Peter pipes up because he was the guy that in the group, and there's one in every group at least, not necessarily a guy, girl as well, that just pipes up and says the answer. Whether they know it's true or not, right? They just pipe up and say it. I'm usually that guy here. And you just say something, right? And so Peter says something, and he gets the right answer. And so this is what Jesus tells him after he gets the right answer. He says, now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. So Peter's name before this is actually Simon. So Jesus kind of assigns him this new identity. He said, now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. So we see the word church there. This is the first time we see Jesus use the word church. But the word in the original language that's been translated as church, and the reason that we have an idea of a building is because of the process of that translation over time into English. The actual word was ekklesia. Okay? And what that meant, simply what Jesus was saying here, what that is, I will build my, actually go back to the yellow, is I will build my ekklesia. I will build my gathering. I will build my assembly. I will build my congregation. I will build my body of people. So he wasn't talking about a building, and he was talking about people. So his church isn't really like a place you go to, right? It's not a what, it's a who. A church is a group of people. And he said, I will build my ecclesia, my church, my group of people, my assembly, my gathering, which is why we call what we do on Sundays a gathering. So, in the next slide, we see ecclesia. If you look at what this gathering was, comprehensively in the New Testament, which is kind of what we're going to do, you're going to see this, and it's a local gathering of believers who help people follow Jesus, love each other, worship God together, and embody Jesus within their community. That doesn't sound so bad, right? Like maybe if you're in here and you kind of have a problem with church, you've had a problem with church in the past, you don't usually in church, or why church, so that's actually a pretty cool thing, right? A local gathering of believers, and again, there's this big C church that's universal, but when you look into the Bible, we find there are these local churches in these communities. A local gathering of believers who help people follow Jesus. They love each other, they worship Jesus together, and embody Jesus to their community. That doesn't sound so bad, right? That's actually a thing you can get on board with. And I hope that as we continue through this, that people will see church as something that, oh, this is a positive thing. This is something that matters. So that's kind of how we would define church. So what I want to do now that we've kind of got this groundwork for what church is, right? This gathering of people, this positive thing. I want to look at what happened when the church started. For the very first time, this very first gathering of people when it started. So again, Peter, who we just talked about, we're going to fast forward. Jesus is no longer on the scene. And Peter comes to this huge celebration, this huge event that's happening in Jerusalem. And he and some of the other apostles begin to tell people about who Jesus was. They killed Jesus. Jesus risen again. He was gone. And now they're going to go out and tell people. And Peter specifically has this very important message that he preaches. That Jesus was God, He was the chosen one that was sent here to save the world from their sins. He killed him. That was part of the process. And he's gone. And he tells them to repent. And repent simply means to pull a 180. Turn your life from going in one direction and go in the direction of Jesus, is what he was saying. And so immediately after this happened, we're going to see this very natural, organic outcome of people believing and following Jesus. Here we go. It says, those who believed what Peter said were baptized and added to the church that day. About 3,000 in all. This actually tells me that the church has some kind of accountability, accounting of people, like right away. They had a number, or at least a roundabout number, 3,000 in all. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, and to fellowship, and to sharing in meals. That word sharing is going to be very important. We're going to see it pop up here a few times. Including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all. And the apostles performed many miracles, signs, and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. Sounds like a cool group to be a part of, right? Like this person has more than I do and they're going to share with me. It's very interesting. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. So the natural outcome of following Jesus together is this sharing of the things that we have. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity. By the way, they met in the temple every day. We only had this like once a week, right? They met every day in the temple. And while praising God, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. I mean, the community liked them. People who weren't like Jesus liked the Jesus people. Isn't that interesting? He says, in each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. So those who were having this life change happen were added to the ranks, they added to the accounting of this group of people every day. What these people were doing, we see one of the biggest things is they were sharing, they were worshiping together, they were devoting themselves to the next steps of faith. And we see that this was the natural outcome of following Jesus together. Because following Jesus leads to a relationship with God and a relationship to a community of faith. It's one of the best and worst things about following Jesus is you're not just now connected to God in a relationship, but now you have all these other people. And people can be really tough to deal with sometimes. But people can also be really awesome to each other. And relationship can be incredibly meaningful. And so we see that it's not just about a relationship with God. We talked about that in our last series. But it's also about a relationship with this gathering of people, these other believers, these other people who are following Jesus. And I would even say a relationship to the community. There was goodwill in the community around this church. And they had this relationship to the community that was positive, that was right. But when you talk to people, and I talk to people a lot, they're like, hey, I can be spiritual, I can be religious, I can even follow Jesus, but I don't need the church. Right? And they have a problem with the church. And I get it. As a person who's grown up in church, I've seen the best and worst of churches. And so a lot of people just have a problem with churches. So we'll see, like, there's some great research here by the Barna Group. And specifically, they look at millennials, right? This generation that's coming up. This generation that is moving into this larger group of what they call nuns, N-O-N-E-S, because there's just people who they don't want to affiliate with anything religiously because maybe how the church heard them. So the millennials, we're seeing this kind of even divide. This almost 50-50, it's 30, 40, 30, 30% that just says, you know what, going to church isn't important. And for a lot of people, they believe, I find God better elsewhere. You ever felt like that? Church isn't the best place for me to find God. And then we see about 40% that are like, take it or leave it. And another 30% that believe that church is important. There's some great reasoning and things on there that they deduce in this research. But the idea is, you're probably sitting in a room, you're seeing a room with a diverse group of people. There's people that are on both sides of that spectrum. Yeah, church is important. This gathering, belonging to this gathering, and being part of this gathering, being part of the community is important, and there's other people that probably say, take it or leave it. And then probably people that say, church is the problem. I hear that sometimes too. Interesting, if you look at the images, you probably can't see it too well. But the millennials, the way they view church the most in modern day Christianity is this visual of this guy with a Bible in his hand pointing his finger at them. Well, yeah, no wonder they don't like church. Right? Who likes that? Who likes that visual? It's a very negative image. But if you look at what they believe the church should be in this world, it's a circle of people with Bibles in their hands talking to each other face to face. Interesting. Interesting look at the way the generation is coming up is really affecting our world right now in a great way. The way they view church. My goal is that people who believe in Jesus, who follow Jesus, will understand that church is important. There's a pastor, Andy Stanley, says it this way. He says, if you're a Christian without a church, something is missing and you're missing something. If you're a Christian without a church, something is missing and you're missing something. There's this body of people, there's this gathering that needs you and you need them. I think we would all admit that we need people. But when times are hard, one of our first reactions is to isolate ourselves. This is in all kinds of situations. But in reality, it's a group of people who share with each other, who care for each other, who are generous and committed to each other, who worship God together. It's actually a help to people, especially to those believers who can be a part of it. I would say if you call yourself a Jesus follower or a believer today and you're in here and you don't necessarily have a church, I would invite you to be a part of this church here at Downtown Faith. And I would say because if you don't have a church, something's missing and you're missing something. Something at Downtown Faith is missing if you're not a part of what's going on. We truly believe that. And we want you to be a part of what's going on. And so our idea worth discussing today, kind of what I hope that we can discuss in a positive way is simply this. A community of faith brings hope to a faithless community. When you look at the early church, this first church that popped up, with all this sharing, all this generosity, all this love, all this kindness, this goodwill, we see it brought hope. They carried the message of Jesus. And I think that a church done right, a community of faith done well, can bring hope to a faithless community. It can give people with no hopes in their marriage hope in their marriage. It can give people who have no hope in their path in life that they've chosen. It can give them hope in the path that they've chosen. And I want Downtown Faith to be that for our downtown community. So we have 4 values that I believe if we can live these out, they'll be important. Wholehearted worship, we say it this way, is basically directing our lives. Directing our everyday lives towards God. Reflecting this God that is bigger than us. Reflecting Him to the world around us. Directing our worship every day. Directing our lives to that. Courageous commitment. Devoting ourselves to next steps of faith. Right? We value next steps of faith. Right? What is that next step of faith that God has for you? And what can you be challenged in that you can commit to? It's important. Loud love. Right? This is simply displaying the love of God to a broken world. I'm sure it probably would take very long to convince each other that the world's broken. Right? So loud love says, I'm going to display the love of God to a broken world. And then lastly, generous giving, which is simply donating our time, our energy, and our resources for the glory of God and the good of others. That sounds like a community of people that can bring hope to their larger community. That sounds like something that is important and can change lives. It sounds to me like the church actually could be a part of this revitalization that's happening in downtown Las Vegas. It sounds almost like we should be. So throughout this whole series, I want to do one more thing, and that's I want to share stories. So we have a core team of people that have helped us. They've done it, right? Like we're here today because people joined up to a crazy vision and said, yeah, let's move our lives to downtown Las Vegas and let's do something. Let's be a part of the revitalization as a church to bring hope. And so I want to highlight the stories of those people as it relates to the things that we're talking about. So today we have a story of the very first couple that joined up with Downtown Faith. And how they weren't in church. Church wasn't important to them. And how being a part of a church, a community faith, brought them hope in a faithless time and a hopeless.
Hi, I'm Patrick Reyes.
And I'm Carrie Reyes. We've been down with Downtown Faith since January of 2016, and we moved here in April of 2016, and we love it.
What comes to my mind when I think about church is, I think now is a big group of family, close friends, and yeah.
I like being down here, just opening up a church downtown area. I like the uniqueness, the different people coming in. People like the getting to sit at the table with other people, getting to know each other, more like a coffee shop feel. People like to ask questions and engage in the conversation, so I really enjoy that part. And I notice that other people coming in notice it too. So for church, for me, I've grown up with it, doing First Catholic and trying to find a Christian church. It's different for me now because we went through some stuff. He didn't want to go to church through miscarriage, cancer. It brought us closer to where finding church at that time helped him a lot.
Personally, walking into the church, through that hard time, I had nowhere to go. Needed kind of answers to what was going on in my life, and just connecting with the church and the people in it kind of gave me direction of how I could get through this rough time, and just having that group of people within the church definitely helped me out and got me on a positive road, and me as a non-believer gave me hope and to believe in something bigger, greater that can get you through
anything.
Get you through anything.